Hello, community. Well, I think yesterday when I closed, I mentioned that I wanted to talk a little bit about why even cost is an entirely different thing when it comes to an STO event project. And I think I want to talk about cost two different ways today. I'll see whether or not I can fit it in without the video getting too lengthy. But I want to talk about how cost is counted different than it is in what I think of as greenfield or more PMBOK project accounting. And then I also want to talk about a little bit about a pretty significant cost control, which is an area where I can't imagine that PMBOK project management would experience it any different than we do. So let's start with the first one. It's all about lost production. And all of us that are in this business, we track our daily burn number, almost live and breathe based on our daily burn number. And that's our job. I mean, that's the number that we're being held accountable for delivering at the best possible delivery. But that's not what our client's looking at. Our clients started looking at a much bigger number the very second the feed came out of the plant. In most cases, this number in a total shutdown, the cost of not being online, the lost production number, if you will, way exceeds, my daily burn or your daily burn. But what I'm trying to put across is that when our client is looking at our daily report, they're adding that daily burn number automatically to the daily lost revenue number. So they're looking at a much, much bigger number than you and I typically look at. This is not generally true in PMBOK greenfield projects. It would be completely unrealistic to start counting your production losses on a project until the project has actually been commissioned in the first place. So this is a very different thing in terms of, what does a day extended on the schedule look like? Probably a lot worse than the thought that is in a pure PMBOK project manager's mind when the discussion begins. So that's the first thing I wanted to put across. It's a very significant thing. It very much rides on our client. That's what keeps them awake at night. The other thing I think would be true of PMBOK projects too, if they were allowed to go down this road, and I think sometimes they maybe do, and maybe more often than us have to go down the road. And this is the question of multiple general contractors. So if the client has, for whatever reason, made the decision to have multiple execution teams, and if the client has, for whatever reason, failed to enforce an integrated event management plan, then you run into the possibility of the individual execution teams all choosing their own individual contractors. This isn't the same as it might be on a big greenfield PMBOK project where various different contractors and various different project managers handle entirely different aspects of the program. In a turnaround, the contractors are doing the same work for all the teams. So when you add multiple contractors to your plan, what you've really done is bolted on huge amounts of indirect billing. The amount of staff you need to deliver LEMs within 24 hours of execution for 200 men isn't a whole lot different than the amount of staff that you need to deliver it for 1,000 men. But 5 teams delivering LEMs on a 24-hour basis are using pretty much 5 times the indirect support just for that one little task. So that's my take on cost control. If you can't get to one management team, if you can't commit to having a turnaround management team that actually is the turnaround management team, and you can't figure out the necessary pieces to get true integration like everybody's asking and pushing for you to do, at the very least, you could insist on cooperation on the GC. You know, it's mostly, the multiple GC thing is mostly driven by people's egos and sense of independence. And they don't want, you know, the types of things we've been talking about with dynamic scheduling. If that dynamic scheduling to address this found work that just came up is going to impact the manpower that they had yesterday in any way, then, well, they don't like that. That doesn't happen in PMBOK projects, and they really don't like it happening in our world either. But it does happen in our world. And to happen efficiently, it needs to be one schedule, one management team. But I'm trying to find ways to help people that politically just cannot get there. I mean, I can't imagine that I really need to reason it through in great detail with people why one leadership team, one schedule, one plan is what makes sense. But I have to admit, after 4 decades, that achieving it apparently has political connotations that, you know, I guess I've never really got the hang of. But if you can't do that, the very least that any leadership team can do is insist that their multiple project managers for their next turnaround are all going to be using one schedule and one GC. Right there, you've dropped a couple $100 an hour off your direct field labor costs. So that's what I have for you today. I hope it helps. Thank you for watching, and please do subscribe on my YouTube channel.